The internet has been positively abuzz recently in response to a pretty insane AUP, acceptable use policy update from PayPal, where in essence the payment giant stated that they would, quote, in PayPal's sole discretion, fine users up to $2,500 per violation of their AUP policy, which was also updated to include misinformation. This, unsurprisingly, got a lot of people very worried, as these days the only discernible difference between misinformation and information appears to be time, with the recent COVID pandemic providing ample evidence of this thesis. However, this is actually nothing particularly out of the ordinary. Policies against misinformation can be found on damn near every platform. In fact, YouTube has several distinct policies on separate pieces of misinformation, be it the most secure election ever, or COVID, or the war in Ukraine, and hey, at least Google won't fine you, they will just eat your channel and destroy your livelihood. Much better, right? And there are even those that will go even further. Remember this from last year, where Twitch stated it would hire law firms to investigate off-platform activities? Oh yes, legislation via terms of service has been a very common thing for quite some time. Even the $2,500 fine part is not new, as others have had money subtracted directly from their PayPal account over unacceptable use. I even covered a little lesbian hentai game a year or so ago that had all of their crowdsourced funds confiscated for aforementioned unacceptable use. Incidentally, I can't tell you any more about that because the YouTube TOS basically bans even talking about hentai games. So what PayPal is doing here is not actually that unusual, but what makes this interesting is that this once at least PayPal appears to have overreached, as one of PayPal's old CEOs criticized the company, and based old Elon Musk joined in as well. After this, dozens of mainstream media articles were written on the subject and are still, as of recording, being written right now. This made PayPal announce that the update had been released in error. And that the language included was never intended for widespread dissemination. Now, I have smelled some bullshit in my life, but rarely have I come across quite such a pungent bouquet. PayPal probably employs a small town's worth of lawyers, and the very idea that anything they release isn't gone over with the equivalent of the Hubble telescope is preposterous. Especially as, again, updates like this is not a strange or unknown thing. PayPal probably quite simply figured they could just do what everyone else had been doing for quite some while and get away with it. As neither misinformation policies or outright theft, really, is anything particularly new, tragic though it may be. But again, this time they got caught. And I think that is a far more interesting thing than the update and the reaction to it. See, companies have for years now essentially been legislating via terms of service or acceptable use policies, in that the company makes up a bunch of vague rules for the express purpose of banning anyone for anything at any time and levying any punishment they damn well please onto them. Now, is this legal? No, not even close. A TOS has about as much legal force as a chicken-shaped cum doll. PayPal has no authority to just take your money with no legal process or information provided to the victim, but that's not going to prevent them from just simply doing it anyways. PayPal has the ability to remove whatever quantity of cash from your PayPal account that they chooses. And if you have your PayPal account linked to your bank account, well, there's nothing stopping them from reaching into that one either. And now, you are left into the position where you, as the victim, have to sue PayPal and prove in court that PayPal's TOS is garbage. And even if your case is the slam dunkiest of dunks, it is going to take years and cost tens of thousands of dollars in legal fees. And theoretically, you could recuperate this by suing PayPal again for legal fees, as you are, once more technically, not allowed to fight a case knowing that you're in the wrong, which PayPal absolutely does know, but once more, how many more years are this going to take? And how many more thousands of dollars is that going to take? PayPal, Google, Twitch, Facebook, etc., all do this, and all rely on no one being stubborn, rich, or stupid enough to take up the decade-long challenge in the legal system. And genuinely, the only way to stop this is to make it socially unacceptable to do it, which is precisely what happened here. A lot of people, and some very important people, made a lot of noise, and quite a few people even decided to close their account on PayPal, though that part, I imagine, was still essentially a drop in the bucket. We shouldn't underestimate the financial angle when attacking PayPal, of course, but it is another one of those companies that is simply too big to hit effectively due to the lack of genuine competitors. Elon Musk and their previous CEO speaking out against the company and attacking the company on its, merits, its reputation, did a lot more damage than thousands of people cancelling their accounts, in my opinion. Potentially even more so now that we are beginning to hear rumours and rumblings of alternatives, proper ones. As many of you have probably already heard, it sounds like Elon is back on the idea of buying Twitter. There was also a whole little legal spat going on there with a discovery process where we saw a lot of interesting little tidbits of messages that had gone back and forth between various members of Twitter and Elon Musk and various people as well. Which apparently, one of the more interesting ones, that the purchase of Twitter would cause the acceleration of the development of X, a everything in one platform, with social media, money transfer, and video uploads. And if Elon is really planning on making X, well, then attacking one of his competitors is obviously a pretty damn good idea. And I do believe it is good for us too. Elon is far from perfect, he is far too much on the environmentalist train for my tastes, and his foreign policy ideas are spicy to say the least, but he is a vastly superior alternative to current Twitter and current PayPal. And more importantly, he has the literal capital and the social capital to force change. If Elon's Twitter takes a free speech stance, others may very well be forced to follow suit, as he is setting the new norm for what is and is not acceptable. And unlike the other alternatives, Elon and his like has the force to break that vicious circle I have talked about on several occasions before, where alternatives like Rumble and BitChute are not true alternatives and never can be because they lack the key component parts to do so. Basically, without the big-name stars on your platform, you don't have the audience. Without the audience, you don't have the money and the advertisement revenue. And without the money, you don't have the big-name stars on your platform, and so it goes and goes and goes. And Elon, for better or worse yet again, can produce all three of these things at the same time. Whether or not that will be enough to see some serious change is hard to predict, but if Elon and a lot of other fairly high-profile individuals, which we saw again in the discovery process, all align themselves in the same direction and in opposition to a lot of the established platforms, well, again, it is very interesting to note that all of these companies aforementioned ones, Twitter, Twitch, Google, YouTube, etc., have in essence been doing the same thing as YouTube. And yet now, finally, one of them has had its fingers smacked. And it is difficult to look at that and not see a little bit of a turning of the tide, a bit of an actual change in what the vast majority of the public is willing to accept in terms of service. Now, before you get too optimistic though, I will also say that this may very well just be a temporary setback, as many companies have a long and proud history of trying something disgusting, and then once smacked, they cringe away in pain, say, sorry, we'll never do that again, and then a year later, they do it again, and more often than not, they get away with it. Because again, what is and is not acceptable varies tremendously based upon times. For example, when YouTube made it straight up illegal for anyone to even mention COVID unless you were a mainstream media source, that was YouTube leaping into the deep end going, nope, we've decided you don't get to talk about this. It was a pretty radical and major move at the time, but they got away with it, and now, well, that's the new normal, isn't it? Oh, you want to talk about the most secure elections in history? That's a big old no-no right there. Oh, you have a dissenting opinion on the war in Ukraine? Well, yet again, that's a bye-bye from YouTube. And if it was already difficult to lay the smackdown on a company when it's doing something disgusting, I guarantee you it will be a lot more difficult to actually reverse these policies that the companies have actually managed to implement. Now that YouTube has realized that, yeah, no, it actually can dictate what you can and cannot say, and can even dictate what position you take and what opinions you have, YouTube is rather unlikely to surrender that power anytime soon, unless there is a truly major shift against that idea. Despite all of that, though, again, I can't help but be at least a little optimistic. At least one of these enormous corporations have received a good smack. At least one piece of greedy cyberpunk dystopia has been denied for now. And maybe, just maybe, there will even be a way to reverse some of these decisions. Maybe we can finally arrive at a point when getting rid of these limitations will be seen as so positive the company will consider it a PR win worth the loss in control. Though, control is a difficult thing to give up. We'll have to wait and see. What do you all think about this, though? Is this a promising sign that we are finally beginning to look a little bit closer at what these companies are doing and trying to deny at least their most outrageous of overreach? Or was this simply a one-off thing? Was this a flash in a pan, and a year from now, the exact same clause will silently slide on in to the AUP and stay there forever? like all of the other pieces of control introduced to these platforms over the years? Or will the rise of a, at least theoretical alternative begin to turn the tide slowly but surely? Sure as hell hope for the latter one. Until next time, I've been Arch. Thank you all very much for listening, and I hope to see you all again soon. Till then, have a good day.